I came home early from work today. Being an OB nurse means my shifts are unpredictable, but I thought I'd finally caught a break. The hospital was quieter than usual, and my supervisor sent me off with a rare smile. Exhausted yet excited, I imagined spending a quiet evening with my husband, Alex. I even stopped by the bakery on my way home to pick up his favorite dessert, a slice of tiramisu he'd been craving all week. Pulling into the driveway, the first sign that something was wrong hit me like a gut punch. Alex's car was parked neatly in its usual spot, though he wasn't supposed to be home yet. At first, I shrugged it off. Maybe he'd decided to work from home, or maybe he'd left work early too. Then, I saw them. Another pair of sneakers. Women's sneakers. They weren't mine. I froze, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My stomach churned, twisting itself into a knot so tight I thought I might throw up. My mind raced, grasping for any logical explanation, but there wasn't one. Every scenario I conjured up pointed to the same chilling conclusion. For months, I'd sensed something shifting in our relationship. Alex had started spending countless hours at the gym, transforming himself into someone I barely recognized. His obsession with fitness felt like a desperate attempt to reinvent himself. He began paying more attention to his diet, his clothes, even the cologne he wore, details he never cared about before. At first, I told myself it was a good thing. Maybe it was a phase, a midlife spark of motivation to take better care of himself. But deep down, the changes unsettled me. Something about his newfound energy felt misplaced. Then there was her, Jessica. She was his gym buddy, or at least that's how he introduced her. Her name started cropping up in conversations like clockwork. Jessica showed me this new workout, he'd say, scrolling through his phone. Jessica says this protein shake is amazing. And then, the one that hurt the most. Jessica's coming over for dinner this week. I think you two will get along. I didn't get along with her. I couldn't. Not because she was rude or unfriendly, quite the opposite, in fact. Jessica was perfect. She exuded effortless beauty and confidence, the kind of person who turned heads without even trying. Slender, athletic, with an easy laugh and a warm smile that masked just how insignificant she made me feel. I wasn't Jessica. I wasn't slender or effortlessly beautiful. I was tired. My job demanded every ounce of energy I had, leaving little room for gym sessions or perfectly styled hair. Most nights, I collapsed on the couch, barely managing to cook dinner before falling asleep to the hum of the TV. Once, I tried to talk to Alex about my fears. I told him how I felt invisible, how his newfound fixation on Jessica made me feel inadequate. I admitted that I was scared, terrified, really that he might be losing interest in me. His response was quick and dismissive. You just need to work on your confidence. I love you, and I'd never betray you. The words were meant to comfort, but they felt hollow. Now, staring at those sneakers on the porch, their emptiness echoed in my mind. I stepped inside quietly, shutting the door behind me without a sound. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out the stillness of the house. The air felt heavy, suffocating, as though the walls themselves were conspiring to keep me from moving forward. Tiptoeing through the laundry room, past the kitchen, and up the stairs, I held my breath, afraid of what I might find. Each step felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My hands trembled, my vision blurred, but I kept moving forward, propelled by a mix of dread and fury. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Voices. Her laugh light, carefree, utterly unbothered. His voice low, intimate, the way he used to speak to me. I pushed the door open just enough to see inside. There they were. Alex lay beside her, his hand gently brushing her cheek. The intimacy between them was undeniable, their laughter weaving a tapestry of betrayal. The way they looked at each other made it clear this wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was something else entirely. Above the bed, our wedding photo hung on the wall. The sight of it made my stomach churn. The smiling couple in that picture, wrapped in the glow of their happiest day, felt like strangers now. The vows we had exchanged felt like lies, a cruel mockery of everything I thought we stood for. I backed away slowly, too stunned to cry, too broken to scream. My mind screamed at me to burst into the room, to demand answers, to make them feel the weight of my pain. But my body betrayed me. All I could do was retreat. I ran. Grabbing my keys, I bolted out of the house and into my car. My hands shook as I fumbled to start the engine. The moment the car roared to life, I sped away, my chest heaving with silent sobs. The city lights blurred through my tears as I drove aimlessly, the streets stretching endlessly before me. Hours passed, though they felt like seconds. I pulled into an empty parking lot, the silence pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't lift. The car became my sanctuary, the only place where I could let the floodgates open. I cried like I'd never cried before, the sound raw and unrestrained. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was the death of a dream, the shattering of a life I had built with someone I thought I knew. Memories of our years together played in my mind like a cruel slideshow. The night he proposed, our first apartment, lazy Sunday mornings spent tangled in each other's arms. All of it felt tainted now, stained by his betrayal. I thought about the signs I had ignored, the doubts I had brushed aside in the name of love. I thought about Jessica and the way she had seamlessly inserted herself into our lives. And most of all, I thought about Alex, the man I had loved, the man who had promised to cherish and protect me, now lying in the arms of another woman. By the time my tears subsided, the sun was starting to rise. Its soft light illuminated the parking lot, casting long shadows across the asphalt. I stared at the horizon, the dawn signaling the start of a new day, a day I wasn't ready to face. But I had to. Taking a deep breath, I wiped my face with the sleeve of my shirt. My reflection in the rearview mirror stared back at me, eyes swollen and bloodshot, but resolute. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know how I would confront Alex or what I would say. But I knew one thing for certain: I deserved better. Was it my fault? Had I let myself go? Had I been so consumed by work that I had failed him as a wife? Or was this just who he was? The questions swirled in my mind, each one heavier than the last. Each one like a weight I couldn't shake. I thought about everything: the long nights at the office, the overtime I had taken on, the endless shifts. Had I done this to myself? To him? To us? I glanced over at the clock. Nearly 1 a.m. The soft buzzing of my phone broke the stillness of the room. It was Alex. "Hey, where are you?" "Your shift ended hours ago," he said, his voice thick with concern. But there was something else too, something I couldn't quite pinpoint. Was it guilt? Was it worry? Or was it just the weariness of knowing he'd been waiting up for me? I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. "My shift got extended. I'll be home later," I lied, my words cold and distant even to my own ears. I didn't want to go home. Home felt like a battlefield, a place where the walls were closing in. The truth of the situation was suffocating, and I couldn't bring myself to face it just yet. The thought of walking back into that house, into that silence, was too much. The lies, the deception, it had all been piling up for weeks, months, maybe even longer. But I wasn't ready to face it. Not now. Instead of going home, I did something I had never done before. I drove to the hospital. The sterile, cold walls greeted me as if they were an old friend. The faint beeping of monitors, the hum of fluorescent lights above me, it was oddly comforting. It felt like a space where I could breathe again, where no one was waiting for me to make decisions, to confront truths, or to fix things that were broken. I found an empty on-call room and locked the door behind me. It was a small, lonely space, the cot pressed up against one wall, but it was mine for now. No one would disturb me. I sank onto the bed, drawing my knees up to my chest, hugging them tightly as if they could keep me safe from the storm raging inside me. I pulled out my phone and stared at the screen for a moment. Then, almost as if the words had to be released, I started typing. I feel so broken, so worthless. I paused, looking at those words, feeling the weight of them settle on my chest. Was that how I really felt? I had to be honest with myself. Yes, I did. It was the only thing that seemed to make sense anymore. Part of me wants to leave him, to tear myself away from this nightmare and never look back. But another part of me, the part that feels small and weak, keeps asking if I even deserve better. What if this is my fault? What if I'm not enough? The tears started to fall then, rolling down my cheeks, one after another. I didn't wipe them away. I just let them come. There was no point in trying to fight it. The anger, the sadness, the confusion, they were all a part of me now. I could feel the emptiness eating away at me, pulling me under. And yet, somehow, I couldn't bring myself to walk away from him. The pain and self-loathing are suffocating. I don't know how to move forward. I had typed those words as a release, as if sharing them could somehow lessen the weight pressing on my chest. But it didn't. It didn't make the ache go away. It didn't fix anything. And yet, there was something cathartic about putting it out into the world, even if only for a moment. I set my phone down beside me and let my head rest against the cot. The minutes ticked by, but it felt like hours. The heaviness in my chest didn't lessen. It only grew. I should have been getting sleep. I should have been thinking of ways to make things better, to fix what was wrong. But I couldn't bring myself to face it, not right now. The silence in the room felt so suffocating, so absolute, that I couldn't make sense of anything. After what felt like an eternity, I reached for my phone again. I read through the comments on my post. The outpouring of support was overwhelming, but there was something sharp in some of the words that made me hesitate. Thank you to everyone who has shown support. Your kind words mean so much to me. That said, I'd appreciate it if the comments could stop now. I've read nearly everything, and while many of you have been kind, some of the remarks, especially about my weight, have been painful. It was strange to think that something as personal as my pain could turn into something so public. People had their opinions, their judgments, and their ideas about what I should do, about what I deserved. Some people wanted to offer me advice, others wanted to share their stories. It was all well-meaning, but it didn't make me feel better. It didn't change anything. Marriage isn't just words online. It's years of shared memories, laughter, and love. He was a good husband in many ways, and I can't help but wonder if I neglected myself physically, if that played a part in this. I couldn't stop the self-doubt from creeping in. I couldn't stop wondering if, somehow, I had done this to myself. If I had pushed him away by not being the woman he wanted me to be. The woman he needed me to be. I could feel the weight of those years, of those memories, pressing down on me. I don't know if I'll stay or go, but I need time. Time? I needed time to figure out what was left of me. Time to decide if this marriage was worth saving, if it even could be saved. But I had to face the truth. I had to confront the reality of what had happened. And that thought terrified me. Edit. I never expected this post to gain so much attention. I'm truly grateful for the support, but please stop sending me messages about my weight or eating habits. The words stung more than I had anticipated. People had their opinions, yes. They had their judgments too. But what did it matter? What did it matter if I had gained weight, if I was tired, if I wasn't perfect? Wasn't it the soul, the heart, that mattered in the end? I hadn't eaten all day. I hadn't eaten in hours, really. And yet, people still felt the need to comment on my appearance as if it somehow justified everything else. To clarify, when I found out, I had just finished a 12-hour shift and hadn't eaten since 11 a.m. I was starving, heartbroken, and trying to make sense of everything. The words came out before I could stop them. It felt necessary to defend myself, to explain the state I was in when all of this happened. But in doing so, I was reminded of how vulnerable I felt, how raw I had become. I wasn't perfect. I was human, and yet, somehow, that seemed to make me less deserving of compassion. Please, just stop criticizing me for being human. It was a cry for mercy, for understanding, but also for the space to heal, to breathe, and to figure things out on my own terms. I didn't need anyone's judgment right now. I needed a chance to figure out who I was and what this all meant. And for the first time in so long, I realized something. Maybe I didn't have to have all the answers. Not yet, anyway. I sat back, staring at the screen as the words sunk in. The tears were gone now, replaced by an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. It felt like the fight had been drained out of me. I wasn't sure if I had the strength to keep going, but I knew I had to. For me, for what was left of me. I didn't know where this road would lead, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel entirely alone. Maybe, just maybe, I could find my way out of this darkness. He thought. I started the car and drove home, not to salvage what was left, but to reclaim what was mine.